I always believed family meant everything. Growing up with my brother Marcus just 2 years apart, we were inseparable. We had each other's backs through thick and thin, especially after losing our parents. I thought helping family was sacred, something you never questioned. My name is Francis, and I learned the hard way that sometimes the people closest to you can destroy your life with calculated precision. What I am about to share will show you how family loyalty nearly cost me everything I had worked for. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If this resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, you will want to hear how this family bond became my biggest nightmare. Let me paint you a picture of who I was before everything fell apart. At 28, I had built what most people would call a successful life in Austin, Texas. As a software developer at a promising tech startup, I had worked my way up from junior programmer to senior developer in just 4 years. The long nights coding and debugging had paid off handsomely. I managed to buy a beautiful 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood when I was 26, something I had dreamed about since college. The house was my pride and joy. A classic American home with a white picket fence, a small front yard with oak trees, and enough space for the family I hoped to have someday. I had always been what people called the responsible one. While other guys my age were spending their paychecks on cars and nights out, I was saving every dollar I could spare. I meal prepped on Sundays, drove a reliable but modest Honda Civic, and lived below my means. Marcus, on the other hand, had always struggled with stability. He was the charming one, the one who could talk his way into any job, but somehow never managed to keep them long. Construction work, delivery, driving, retail management. He had tried them all. I never judged him for it. People are different, and I figured he would find his path eventually. When our parents died in that horrible car accident 3 years ago, Marcus took it harder than anyone expected. Dad and Mom had been driving home from their anniversary dinner when a drunk driver ran a red light. The impact killed them instantly. At the funeral, Marcus could barely speak. He stood there in his ill-fitting black suit, tears streaming down his face, looking completely lost. I held him as he sobbed, promising him that we still had each other. I covered most of the funeral expenses because Marcus was between jobs again. It was not about the money. It was about doing right by our parents and taking care of my brother when he needed me most. That is what family does. That is what I believed then. About a year after the funeral, Marcus met Sarah at a local diner called Rosie's Kitchen, where she worked as a waitress. She was petite with blonde hair and bright blue eyes, always smiling and calling customers honey and sweetie. When Marcus brought her to Sunday dinner at my house, she seemed genuinely sweet. She complimented everything, my cooking, the house, even my career choice. "Francis, you are so smart with all this computer stuff," she would say, batting her eyelashes. "Marcus is lucky to have such a successful brother." She asked thoughtful questions about my work and seemed impressed by my achievements. She would often mention how nice my house was and how I had done so well for myself. At first, I took it as genuine admiration. Looking back, I realized she was gathering intelligence. Marcus seemed happier than I had seen him since before our parents died. Sarah brought out his smile again, made him laugh, gave him confidence. When he told me they were getting married after just 6 months of dating, I was surprised by the speed, but happy he had found someone who made him feel whole again. The wedding was small. Just a few friends and some extended family at the local courthouse, followed by dinner at a modest restaurant. I was Marcus's best man, and Sarah seemed to glow with happiness. She hugged me tight after the ceremony and whispered, "I am so glad to be part of the family, Francis. We are going to take such good care of each other." But I started noticing small things that made me uncomfortable. During their visits, Sarah would wander around my house when she thought no one was looking. I caught her going through mail on my kitchen counter once, and when I asked about it, she laughed it off, saying she was just looking for a pen to write down a recipe she wanted to remember. She began making comments about family and sharing resources. "In a real family, everyone should help everyone," she would say over dinner. "It is not fair when some people have so much while others struggle." The comments were always directed at me, always with that sweet smile that somehow felt less genuine each time. I noticed Marcus starting to echo Sarah's opinions more than expressing his own thoughts. When we talked about sports or politics topics we had always debated freely, he would glance at Sarah before answering as if seeking approval. It was subtle, but it was there. 8 months into their marriage, Marcus lost his job at the construction company. According to him, It was budget cuts and last hired, first fired. Around the same time, Sarah claimed she was having pregnancy complications that prevented her from working her waitressing shifts. She said the doctor had put her on bed rest, though I never saw any medical documentation. Marcus called me on a Tuesday evening, his voice heavy with stress. "Francis, I hate to ask this, but we might need a place to stay for a little while. Just until I can find another job and Sarah gets back on her feet with the pregnancy." I did not hesitate. "Of course, Marcus. Family helps family. You can stay in the guest room and there is plenty of space." We agreed it would be temporary, 2 months maximum. They would contribute what they could to groceries and utilities, and Marcus would actively job hunt while Sarah focused on her health and the pregnancy. It seemed reasonable, even generous. I was happy to help my brother during a difficult time. The first week went smoothly enough. Marcus was grateful and apologetic about the situation. He helped with household chores and made an effort to give me space in my own home. Sarah, however, began to change almost immediately. She started criticizing my lifestyle choices. "Francis, do you really need all this space just for yourself?" she would ask while looking around my living room. "It seems selfish when there are people who need homes." When I wanted to work quietly in my home office in the evenings, she would knock on the door and ask why I was isolating myself from family. When I suggested we establish some house rules about shared spaces and quiet hours, she would tear up and tell Marcus that I was making her feel unwelcome during her difficult pregnancy. Marcus began defending Sarah's behavior and questioning my motives. "She is pregnant and emotional, Francis. Could you try to be a little more understanding?" This became his standard response whenever I tried to address any issues. What I did not realize was that this was just the beginning of a carefully orchestrated campaign designed to destroy everything I had built. Sarah's transformation from sweet sister-in-law to master manipulator happened gradually, like watching someone's true colors bleed through white paint. She was methodical, calculating, and absolutely ruthless in ways I could never have imagined. It started with small violations of privacy that she could easily explain away. I would find her in my bedroom claiming she was looking for extra towels in my linen closet. She rifled through my home office saying she needed to borrow a stapler for some pregnancy paperwork. Each time I confronted her, she had a reasonable excuse delivered with wounded innocence. "Francis, I am family now. I thought we trusted each other," she would say, her eyes welling up with tears. "I never meant to overstep. I guess I just felt so comfortable here because you have been so welcoming." But I began securing important documents in a locked filing cabinet after I found her photographing financial statements with her phone. When I asked about it, she claimed she was trying to take a picture of a recipe card that had fallen behind my desk. The explanation was plausible enough that I could not prove otherwise, but my instincts screamed that something was wrong. Sarah's next strategy was character assassination disguised as concern. She started telling neighbors and extended family members about my behavior, always framed as worry for my well-being. "I am really concerned about Francis," she would tell Mrs. Peterson next door while they chatted over the fence. "He seems so isolated and bitter. Marcus and I try to include him in family activities, but he just pushes us away. I worry he resents having to share his space with people who actually need help." To my cousin Jennifer, she expressed similar concerns at a family gathering. "Francis has been so different since we moved in. He makes these comments about people taking advantage of him, and honestly, it makes me uncomfortable being there. I know he works hard, but I wish he would not flaunt his success so much when others are struggling." These conversations always got back to me through well-meaning family members who suggested I should be more grateful to have people who cared about me. The irony was suffocating. Sarah's masterpiece was her systematic poisoning of my relationship with Marcus. She would wait until I was at work, then spend hours filling Marcus's head with carefully crafted stories about my behavior. Francis made another comment about how much we eat yesterday. She would tell him, tears streaming down her face. He said something about maybe we should consider contributing more to groceries since we have such big appetites. I know we are trying our best, but it made me feel like such a burden. I never said anything remotely like that, but Marcus would confront me the moment I walked through the door. "Sarah told me what you said about the groceries, Francis. That was completely out of line. She is pregnant and eating for two." My denials and explanations fell on deaf ears. "Why would Sarah lie about something like that?" he would ask. She has no reason to make things up. Sarah also began creating incidents designed to make me look unstable or aggressive. She would deliberately break something valuable, then claim it happened because she was nervous around me. When my grandmother's antique vase shattered in the living room, she sobbed to Marcus about how my constant criticism made her hands shake. I was just trying to dust it to help keep the house nice, she explained through tears. But Francis makes me so anxious that I can barely function. I feel like I am walking on eggshells all the time. The pregnancy became her most powerful weapon. Every disagreement, every boundary I tried to set, every moment of frustration was reframed as a threat to her unborn child. The stress Francis causes is not good for the baby, she would tell Marcus after any conversation where I stood my ground. My doctor says stress can cause complications and I am already high risk. Marcus became increasingly protective and hostile toward me. Our conversations turned into arguments. Our arguments turned into cold silence. I was becoming an outsider in my own home, and Sarah was orchestrating every moment of it. She discovered the information about my savings account during one of her cleaning sessions in my office. I had been careless with a bank statement, and she photographed everything. Within days, she was making expensive purchases and putting them on what she claimed was our shared grocery budget. Family should share resources, she reminded Marcus, when I questioned a $300 shopping trip. Francis has plenty of money. He should not be nickel and diming us when we are going through such a hard time. But the most insidious part of her manipulation was how she made me doubt my own perceptions. Every time I tried to explain to Marcus what was happening, she had counter-evidence witnesses or explanations that made me sound paranoid and cruel. I think Francis might be having some kind of mental health crisis, she confided to Marcus within my hearing. He is seeing malice in everything I do. Yesterday, he accused me of going through his things when I was just trying to organize the guest bathroom. I am starting to worry about what he might do. The seed was planted. Marcus began watching me like I was a dangerous animal that might snap at any moment. Every conversation felt like a trap, every interaction a potential incident that could be used against me later. I realized that Sarah had been planning something bigger from the very beginning. All of these smaller manipulations were building toward a crescendo that would destroy me completely. I could feel it coming, but I had no idea how devastating the final act would be. The explosion came on a Thursday evening in November, exactly 3 months after Marcus and Sarah had moved into my home. Marcus had been out all day at a job interview for a supervisory position at a local manufacturing plant. It was the most promising opportunity he had had in months, and we were all hopeful it would be the start of getting their lives back on track. I came home from work around 6:30 p.m., exhausted from debugging a particularly complex software issue that had kept me at the office 2 hours past my usual departure time. The house was quiet when I walked in, which was unusual since Sarah typically had the television on or music playing. I called out a greeting but got no response. Assuming Sarah was napping, I went to my office to finish some work remotely. About an hour later, I heard Marcus's truck pull into the driveway. I was looking forward to hearing about the interview and maybe sharing a beer while Sarah prepared dinner. Instead, I heard Sarah's voice immediately as Marcus entered the house. She was crying hysterically, her words tumbling over each other in a way that sounded both panicked and rehearsed. "Marcus, thank God you are home. I did not know what to do. I was so scared." I could hear Marcus's concerned voice asking what was wrong, but I could not make out his words clearly. Then Sarah's voice rose, and every word cut through me like a knife. It was Francis. He came home from work, and I was doing laundry in the basement. He cornered me down there and tried to touch me. When I told him to stop, he grabbed my arm and said that since I was living in his house, I should be grateful and show him some appreciation. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat frozen at my desk, unable to process what I was hearing. This was not happening. This could not be happening. Sarah continued her performance with Oscar-worthy conviction. I managed to get away and ran upstairs, but he followed me. He said that you were never home and that I was wasting my time with someone who could not even provide for me properly. He said he could take care of me the way I deserved. I heard Marcus explode with a roar of rage that shook the house. "Where is he? Where is that sick bastard?" Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs and my office door flew open. Marcus stood in the doorway, his face red with fury, his hands clenched into fists. Behind him, Sarah appeared with perfect timing. Her shirt was torn at the shoulder, her hair was disheveled, and her makeup was smeared as if she had been crying for hours. "Marcus, please do not make this worse," she pleaded, placing a hand on his arm. "I just want him to leave us alone." I stood up slowly, my mind racing to process what was happening. "Marcus, whatever she told you, it is not true. I just got home an hour ago, and I have been in this office the entire time." "Shut up!" Marcus screamed, his voice breaking with emotion. "Do not you dare lie to me about this. I saw what you did to her." "I did not do anything to her," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and rational. "I swear on our parents' graves I did not touch her." Sarah let out a fresh sob. "He is lying, Marcus, just like he lies about everything else. I did not want to tell you because I know how much you love your brother, but he has been making comments for weeks. Little things that made me uncomfortable, but I thought I was imagining it." Marcus's eyes were wild with protective rage. "You sick freak. She is pregnant with my child, and you tried to assault her in my own house. Marcus, listen to me," I pleaded, stepping toward him with my hands raised. "This never happened. I came home, called out to say hello, and came straight to this office. Check my computer logs. Check anything you want. Get away from me." Marcus snarled, backing up and pulling Sarah behind him. "I do not want to hear another word from your lying mouth." Sarah peeked over Marcus's shoulder, her eyes meeting mine for just a moment. In that brief instant, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. There was no fear, no trauma, no genuine distress. There was calculation, satisfaction, and cold triumph. She had been planning this exact moment for months. "I did not want to break up the family," she whispered to Marcus. "I tried to handle it on my own, but when he grabbed me today, I realized he was not going to stop." Marcus pulled Sarah into a protective embrace, then fixed me with a look of pure hatred. "Pack your things and get out of my house. I do not ever want to see your face again." "This is my house, Marcus," I said quietly. "I bought it. My name is on the deed. I do not care whose name is on what piece of paper," he spat. "Get out now, or I am calling the police and telling them exactly what you did." The threat hung in the air between us. I realized that if Marcus called the police, it would be Sarah's word against mine. A pregnant woman, claiming assault versus a single man with no witnesses. Even if charges were not filed, the accusation alone would destroy my reputation, my career, everything I had worked for. Sarah continued to sob quietly, playing her role perfectly. "Please, Marcus, I just want him gone. I do not want to press charges or make this into a big thing. I just want to feel safe in our home again." Our home. She had already claimed ownership of everything I had built. I looked at my brother, searching for any trace of the person I had grown up with, the person I had comforted at our parents' funeral, the person I had welcomed into my home without question. But all I saw was a stranger consumed by rage and manipulation. "You have until tomorrow morning to get your stuff and get out," Marcus said with cold finality. "If you are still here when I get back from work, I am calling the police." I spent that night in a hotel staring at the ceiling and trying to understand how my life had been destroyed so completely in the span of 30 minutes. Sarah had played her hand perfectly, and I had been powerless to stop it. The next morning, I returned to what had been my home, to find my belongings scattered across the front lawn like debris from a tornado. My clothes, books, electronics, and personal items were strewn everywhere, some clearly damaged from being thrown rather than placed. My laptop had a cracked screen, and several photo albums containing irreplaceable family memories were water-damaged from the overnight dew. Marcus was not there, but Sarah stood in the doorway watching me gather my life from the grass. She no longer bothered with the tearful, frightened act. Her expression was cold, almost bored, as she observed my humiliation. "You should have just minded your own business," she said casually, sipping coffee from my favorite mug. "All you had to do was keep your mouth shut and let us live here peacefully." I wanted to confront her, to demand she tell Marcus the truth, but I knew it would only give her more ammunition. Instead, I quietly loaded my belongings into my car, taking pictures of the damage for documentation purposes, though I was not sure what good it would do. Sarah's final move was a masterstroke of manipulation disguised as concern. She posted on Facebook that evening, crafting a message that painted her as a survivor and me as a dangerous predator. "I want to thank everyone for their prayers and support during this difficult time. Unfortunately, I cannot go into details, but Marcus and I had to make the difficult decision to remove a dangerous person from our home to protect our growing family. It breaks my heart that someone we trusted could betray that trust so completely, but I am grateful for my husband's strength and protection. We are focusing on healing and our baby's health now. The post was shared dozens of times within hours. Extended family members, family friends, and even some of my work colleagues saw it. The implications were clear enough that everyone could read between the lines, but vague enough that I could not definitively prove defamation. Marcus changed the locks on my house that same day. When I tried to call him, my number was blocked. When I attempted to reach him through other family members, they either refused to get involved or actively took his side. My cousin Jennifer called me that weekend, her voice cold and disappointed. "Francis, I do not know what happened between you and Sarah, but Marcus is family, and she is carrying his child. Maybe you should think about getting some help." Even my work environment became uncomfortable. Sarah's Facebook post had been seen by several colleagues, and while my direct supervisor was supportive, I could feel the whispers and sideways glances. In the tech industry, reputation matters, and accusations of inappropriate behavior can derail careers even without formal charges. I found a small one-bedroom apartment across town and threw myself into work trying to rebuild some sense of normalcy, but the isolation was crushing. Marcus and I had been best men at each other's weddings that never happened, godparents to children that did not exist yet, and partners in planning our parents' funeral. Now he would not even acknowledge my existence. The depression hit hard during the winter months. I would come home to my empty apartment and struggle to find motivation for anything beyond basic survival. I gained weight, stopped exercising, and withdrew from the few social connections I had maintained. Some nights I would drive by my old house and see Marcus's truck in the driveway, lights on in the windows, smoke coming from the chimney I had dreamed of, enjoying with my own family someday. It was my therapist doctor, Amanda Wright, who finally helped me understand what had happened. I had started seeing her in February initially, just to have someone to talk to who would not judge me or choose sides. "Francis, what you are describing sounds like a textbook case of psychological manipulation," she explained during one of our sessions. Sarah demonstrated several classic behaviors: love bombing in the beginning, isolation tactics, gaslighting, triangulation with your brother, and finally a calculated false accusation designed to completely destroy your support system. Learning the terminology helped me understand that I was not crazy, that my perceptions had been accurate, and that I had been the victim of a sophisticated psychological attack. But understanding it and healing from it were two different things. Dr. Wright helped me recognize that my excessive focus on family loyalty had made me vulnerable to exploitation. You assumed that because someone was family, they deserved unlimited trust and support. But healthy relationships require boundaries and mutual respect, even within families. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild my life. I focused on work, achieved a significant promotion, and started making genuine friends who knew nothing about my family drama. I began exercising again, took up hiking, and discovered a passion for photography that gave me peace and purpose. The healing process took months, but I gradually developed a stronger sense of self-worth that was not dependent on other people's approval or manipulation. I learned to trust my instincts about people's character and to establish clear boundaries in relationships. By summer, I was genuinely happier and healthier than I had been in years. I had moved to a better apartment, built meaningful friendships, and was dating someone wonderful who appreciated my loyalty and kindness without trying to exploit it. Then on a Tuesday evening in July, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Marcus's number. I had not heard from him in 8 months. His voice was broken, desperate, and barely recognizable. "Francis, I know I have no right to call you, but I need help. Sarah left me. She took everything and disappeared with some guy she was seeing behind my back. I lost the house because I could not keep up with the mortgage payments after you stopped helping. I am living in my truck right now." The words came tumbling out in a rush of desperation and regret. "She was never pregnant, Francis. It was all lies. Everything she told me about you was lies. I found out she did the same thing to her previous boyfriends. I am so sorry. I know I do not deserve forgiveness, but you are the only family I have left." Marcus's voice broke completely as he continued. Could I maybe stay with you for just a little while? Just until I get back on my feet, I promise I will make everything right. I will tell everyone the truth about what really happened. I sat in my comfortable apartment, looking out at the sunset over Austin, feeling a calm I never expected to experience in this moment. The brother who had destroyed my life, who had chosen a manipulative stranger over family loyalty, who had thrown away everything we had built together, was asking me to save him from the consequences of his choices. For the first time in our relationship, I held all the power, and what I chose to do with it would define not just our future, but the person I had become through this painful journey. What would you do if your family member betrayed you this deeply and then came asking for help when karma caught up with them? Have you ever been manipulated by someone you trusted completely? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because I know many of you have faced similar situations with toxic family members or partners who used your love against you. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and manipulation. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that they are not crazy for questioning toxic behavior, even from family members. Thank you for listening to my story and for being part of a community where we can share these difficult experiences without judgment. Remember, healing is possible. Boundaries are healthy, and sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them face the natural consequences of their choices. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video.